So I clicked on this article here because eventually this all started with the name Halloween. Just replaced the name SamHein by Pope Gregory III. Designated November 1st as a time to honor All Saints. Soon, All Saints Day incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain, which was pagan. The evening before was known as All Hallows Eve, and later Halloween. Over time, Halloween evolved into a day of activities like trick-or-treating, carving jack-o'-lanterns, festive gatherings, donning costumes, and eating treats. So this was off. Pope Gregory here, the third. If this was true, he was off. So the word Halloween and Samhain is basically the same shit. The same shit. It's just hardcore Samhain. Traditionalists would try to separate them, but basically it's he ended up doing the priests. Pope Gregory III essentially ended up just allowing the pagan roots of it to choke the so-called Christian biblical tradition from it. So it's all off. I'll still have to do more research into that. Yeah, because this one over here mentioned how I looked up when was Samhain changed to Halloween. And here they kind of gave a good report about Pope Gregory III. It says that he moved the Christian celebration of All Saints Day to November 1st. Because originally All Saints Day was on May something. So we moved it to November 1st, the same day as Samhain. So you could have said maybe he did that because he wanted to purge off the Halloween in that time, because he was ruling near that place was still, tribes there were still heavy into that culture of Samhain. The same day as Samhain, the night before was then called All Hallows Eve, a name that eventually contracted to Halloween. To ease the conversion of pagan peoples, the church allowed many of the old traditions to continue and merge with the new Christian holidays. This is why modern Halloween includes elements like bonfires, costumes, and themes of ghosts and spirits. But if he allowed that, though, it's off. Okay, that's what I would say. So I kind of got confused there. I asked the question. Because it mentions this, though, in the 9th century, Christians did not celebrate All Hallows Eve in the modern sense. The day was observed as a vigil of fasting and prayer in preparation for All Saints Day. So they're also saying this. With any festival or folk traditions largely stemming from pagan practices the church was seeking to replace. So some of them are saying it was really a day of, so this one is saying it was really a day of prayer and fasting, and didn't incorporate any of the other pagan stuff with it, because it was to replace the SamHein. Other information is telling me that Pope Gregory was trying to, the third was trying to, or maybe this was Pope Gregory, another Pope Gregory, this is Pope Gregory the Fourth. It was Pope Gregory the Fourth and not Gregory the Third who extended the celebration of All Saints' Day to the entire church. In 835, formalizing the November 1st dates, the night before October 1st became the All Hallows Eve. Visual historians widely believe this thing was an effort to supplant the pagan Celtic festival of Samhain, which fell on the same dates. So I think this was Pope Gregory the Fourth, not the Third, that tried to further replace the paganism with actual righteous things like the vigil, prayer, fasting. The eve was a time for churchgoers to engage in an evening vigil characterized by prayer and fasting in preparation for the solemn feasts of All Saints' Day. Worshippers spent the night contemplating the lives of the saints who had gone before them, offering thanks for their faith. While the official church observance was religious, pre-existing folk traditions likely influenced, so later on that got replaced by the influence of the paganism of Samhain, persisted and gradually blended with Christian practices. So this would have been after Pope Gregory the Fourth's death, because Pope Gregory the Fourth now I understand he was the one that actually tried to righteousness replace that holiday, wicked holiday, with so that's just a fun fact there. Yeah, Samhain kind of does have a well, not really. I want to say not entirely. But there was righteous kings, popes in that time that ruled, like this man here, Pope Gregory the Fourth. Pope Gregory the Fourth, he actually tried to replace it. Was Bishop of Rome and ruler of the Papal States. From October 27th to his death on the 25th January 844. Pope Gregory, also known as Pope Gregory the Great, is known for his extensive reforms, which included improving the administration of church estates and developing the Mass liturgy and Gregorian chants. This man actually was righteous and tried to remove that wicked holiday. But ultimately, that didn't happen as we see today. So, just a fun fact there.
Deep into the ancient roots of a festival that many of us know as Halloween. But did you know its origins trace back to the Celtic festival of Samhain? Let's unravel the mystery.
Okay. Alright, so like here for that, didn't mean for that to happen. Whatever.
Is Halloween. By 43 AD.
I'll tell y'all when y'all see. Didn't I tell?
Now this Jake here goes in. This is the one I really wanted. This is the main one clip I really wanted to play. So going into the sacrifice, human sacrifice origins of this wicked holiday, Halloween.
Hey, y'all, when y'all see this face that I'm about to drop a truth bomb on you. So I'm continuing off of the first video I did talking about Halloween and where did trunk or treat come from and why are the churches participating in this pagan, evil, demonic holiday. Hey, stay tuned for the whole video in its entirety. Let's not be ignorant to Satan's devices. October the 31st was a night of terror called SamHein. That night, the Druids went house to house, taking victims to human sacrifice. In exchange for the victim, they left a jack-o'-lantern, which was supposed to protect the home from death demons that night. Hey church, can you tell the congregation this? Can you explain this to the church? Can you explain this stuff to the kids? And can y'all get this trunk or treat mess out of the church? Was supposed to be holy. Let me continue on reading. Y'all stay with me now. The Druid SamHein festival is where Halloween originates. Druid priests would go door to door and collect children for human sacrifice. To appease the dark spirits and the dead, carving pumpkin heads and leaving them at the houses of folk who had offered children as a form of ward to prevent spirits from haunting their household. This time of the year is the year of winter solstice, and it is a demonic dark time of the year. This is why we finish out the year with all these different type of pagan holidays. So this time of the year, pagan Christmas and pagan Halloween, involves this: child sacrifice, sitting your kids on Santa's lap, and children dressing up in costumes going door to door. Notice that these so-called holidays involve kids. That's the truth of it. This is a depiction of the pagan god Molech, aka the devil. So let me get this straight from us just reading. These Druid priests would take these children that people will offer up. They would place a jack-o'-lantern, a carved pumpkin in front of the door to ward off the evil dead spirits, so these spirits won't haunt their home. You see how demonic and pagan and wicked this is? In all y'all churches, you need to stop this stuff. You see, now judgment's gonna be on your head. For those of y'all that claim to be pastors and claim to be shepherds, and you're participating in this stuff, even in trunk or treat, you gotta answer to God. A Druid priest was a member of a learned priestly social class in ancient Celtic societies of Western Europe, particularly in Gaul, Britain, and Ireland. That's what a Druid priest is. For my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge, Hosea 4:6. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. Y'all watch part 1 about what is a SamHein festival. A lot of curses and spells and witchcraft is done around this time of the year. Y'all better stop playing and start waking up and follow the truth, the way, and the life, and that is Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ, because there are spells and things that are released and brought upon mankind, especially a lot of churches, because if you all are worshiping other gods and you are learning the
So he's going off the name. Okay, that's not the name.
way of the heathen, and y'all stay with me now. The Druid SamHein festival is where Halloween originates. Druid priests would go door to door and collect children for human sacrifice. To appease the dark spirits and the dead, carving pumpkin heads and leaving them at the houses of folk who had offered children as a form of war. This is why we finish out the year with all.
And yeah, and once again, as you see in the photo, it's all like going into Molech, specifically Molech. They would, in the Bible scriptures, it mentions certain kings in Israel that, and regular Israelites, a lot of them who lived in Israel, who were Israelites, who made their children pass through the fire unto Molech. So that's when you see photos like this, it's basically depicting Molech. And then once other kingdoms got into power, replaced those, would change the name, but it still partook in the same ritual sacrifice of fire.
These different type of pagan holidays. So this time of the year, pagan Christmas.
So ultimately, in Samhain, they were known to do that. Okay. Now I know this other story of how Samhain they would take the gall. I forgot what it was called. But basically they would go door to door and say trick or treat later on in the night after the festival was over or whatnot. And I believe they did this. Now the other dude, you notice in those other clips, they didn't mention this. Going back to what I said earlier in the first part of these, go check those out. They weren't going to mention the dark side of this Samhain. because they want to make their little tradition there, what they go back to, have all the good light. They want to paint it in a good light, positive light. But ultimately, it doesn't go back to a positive light. They sacrifice the children in the fire, something you should never do. Ultimately, the Lord Himself, the Father, had to do that because we were off at the time, and Yahweh had to be sacrificed for the sins and remission of us. And that's different. Okay, that's because we were in such a bad, we were in such a low state through all the wickedness we've done that I wish I had to do that. Now, if you're a dumbass and want to fucking contradict the Lord, go ahead and do that. But you're a stupid ass if you do that. I mean, y'all, you're sacrificing, you guys, you out here, you're sacrificing a human child, not for your nation. All right, the Lord did it for His nation. Ultimately, Yahweh did it for His nation to save His people, so He can ultimately decide to forgive them. Now, you guys, you're sacrificing your children who are not perfect, just for yourself, for your own selfish vain practices. That's a completely different thing there. Okay, to some idiot that might want to argue, well, the Lord sacrificed His son. How come I can't sacrifice my son? Why would you sacrifice your own son, dumbass? All right.
Pagan Halloween involves this: child sacrifice, sitting your kids on Santa's lap, and children dressing up in costumes going.
You're a dumbass for you're a dumbass. I'm talking to you, man. You're a dumbass for sacrificing your own son because it wasn't for the intent of how the Lord sacrificed His son. You can't sacrifice your son the way the Lord Father has sacrificed His son to save His nation, specifically Israel. You other nations ain't going to be saved. I'm not talking about y'all. You other heathens, you sacrifice your children, and 2/3 of Israel sacrifice their children, or just in general wicked Israelites who are in their right minds, who might be the elect, sacrifice your children for nothing, just for an idol, a meaningless sacrifice. The Lord did it so He could save His nation. That's the difference.
Door to door. Notice that these so-called holidays involve kids. That's the truth of it. This is a depiction of the pagan god Molech, aka the devil. So let me get this straight from us just reading. These Druid priests would take these children that people will offer up. They would place a jack-o'-lantern, a carved pumpkin in front of the door to ward off the evil dead spirits, so these spirits won't haunt their home. You see how demonic and pagan and wicked this is? In all y'all churches, you need to stop this stuff. You see, now judgment's gonna be on your head. For those of y'all that claim to be pastors and claim to be shepherds, the devil. So let me get this straight from us just reading. These Druid priests would take these children that people will offer up. They would place a jack-o'-lantern, a carved pumpkin in front of the door to ward off the evil dead spirits. So explain this to the church. Can you explain this stuff to the kids? And can y'all get this trunk or treat mess out of the church? We're supposed to be holy. Let me continue on reading. Y'all stay with me now. The Druid SamHein festival is where Halloween originates. Druid priests would go door to door and collect children for human sacrifice, to appease the dark spirits in the dead, carving pumpkin heads and leaving them at the houses of folk who had offered children as a form of ward to prevent spirits from haunting their household. This time of the year is the year of winter solstice, and it is a tree come from, and why are the churches participating?
So kind of
Demonic holiday. Hey, stay tuned for the whole video in its entirety. Let's not be ignorant to Satan's devices. October the 31st was a night of terror called SamHein. That night, the Druids went house to house, taking victims to human sacrifice. In exchange for the victim, they left a jack-o'-lantern, which was supposed to protect the home from death demons that night. Hey, church. Hey, church.
So, yeah, man. So, in some of those clips we saw, they mentioned how they left off the jack-o'-lanterns. and some of them would give past food offerings or whatever, sacrifices of vegetables or foods or whatever, and you keep their door open. But they didn't mention this, okay, which I believe they did do this. They just didn't mention it in those other videos to make it SamHein look like it's a more, to make it look like that day look like it's in a better light, to give it a better image behind that whole tradition, human tradition, pagan tradition. And in other stories I saw, they mentioned how they would take them to a hill. And some other stories I mentioned how they would burn them alive, the children. And then in other stories I also heard how they, so there's various stories to it. Okay, they probably had different ways of doing these things. And what they did to those children that were going to be the sacrifices, human sacrifices. Now, in one of them, I can't find a clip anymore. I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't know if it was on Instagram here or on YouTube. But one of them, it mentioned how, Lord willing, I find it another day, but it mentioned how they would take them to play this game where you had the, where they played a game, still play it sometimes today, where they had the apples in there, and then you would have to pick them with your mouth. Well, in this case, they mentioned how they would put acid as the water to pick, or slug, maybe not acid in the water, but because they would probably, I imagine they would probably eat the apple up. But it mentioned how they would put them to play that game, and if they weren't able to get any apple, or if they weren't even able to take one apple, a single apple, then they would throw acid on their face. And have to walk back home. Or and I believe this is true, but this was a clip from years ago or last year. I don't remember, but I still remember it. It was something like this, and I believe this is true. And also, they mentioned how, or either they would put acid in the water as the water, and then they would have to pick the apples, or either it was water, just regular water, and then that was apples. Who knows? It could have been an acid that didn't burn the apple. Either way, whatever, or it was just water, and if it was just water, if they couldn't pick it, then they would throw acid on their face, and then they would have to walk back home blindly. And if they didn't make it, well, then the next day there would be a sacrifice. Okay, and if you didn't give them the treat they wanted, which would be someone from their home, the youngest person from their home, they would come back later, or they said demons would come back later, and someone would die in that home. From the story I got. Okay, so just going into a bit more history of the Druids.
And I'll give you some examples. Let's start with the big one. Let's start with words we hear all.
Let me get a scripture first. Ephesians 6. "11, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." Wiles means traps. "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girded about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness. Yeah, there's a lot of highly spiritual left-handed magic going on out here. Okay, never mind.